That's the whole song. Yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, lie, lie. Yeah, lie, 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 lie. Yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, lie. Yeah, lie, 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 lie. Yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, lie. Yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, lie, lie. Yeah, lie, 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 yeah, lie, lie. Yeah, lie, 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 lie. Shabbat shalom. We began our service just now with the Nigun, a wordless song. Sometimes it's said that when you focus on the melody, focus on the liturgy, the words, it's just too much for our brains, and we'll just center ourselves and welcome Shabbat without words to start. Also, having guests, it's a great way to not throw us into the Hebrew right away, but that is coming, so we'll make sure that you know what's happening. We are obviously a small congregation, large in heart, and oftentimes when we're in settings like this, we each introduce ourselves. I will start, and so if you're all prepared, we'll go around. Please share who you are, maybe how long you've been with the congregation, or if you're new or visiting. So I'm Lee Crow. This is my first time being able to say that I am now the Shlichat Tzibor of this congregation, as the board recently voted in, and I'm really honored to take on that position. It literally means a messenger of prayer, a messenger for the congregation. I'm not a rabbi. I don't claim to be a rabbi or anything like that, but I certainly have experience leading song and being part of this congregation. I'm honored to do so. So our guest,
I'm Paul Savides. I'm a guest this evening, and I'm going to be talking to you about Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Susan Wolfgram. I've been a member of this temple in and out for about 35 years, and I will be talking with you this evening as well about the Affordable Housing Task Force. Thank you, and thank you for inviting us.
Danielle Pilkin, been with the congregation over 20 years and just recently stepped down as president. I was president on and off for about 9 years, and have given the responsibility to others. And I'm still the treasurer here, and I'm so excited that Lee is going to be leading us, or at least for the next year. So that is wonderful. Thank you.
I'm Tyler from the University of Eau Claire, just visiting. Thanks for accepting me here with you guys.
thanks for being here.
Welcome, Tyler.
Matt Miller, been here about 4 years. Do a lot of things here. Some of them aren't even embarrassing.
Oh, I'll start over here then. Hi, my name is Reagan Nistrom, originally from Chicago, then Peoria, and I've lived here with my husband for a year, and it's about how long that we've been part of the congregation.
I'm not going to stand up. It'd be terrifying for all. My name is Kurt Weedle. This is my husband. I am on a slow roll conversion, and I've been here for about a year.
What about those dudes in the front row?
I think they're working up. Yeah. Would you guys like to? Go ahead.
Can
you stand up, honey?
I'm Elliot, and I've been to Temple Shalom for about 1 or less than a year.
I'm glad it feels that way. It's been a while. Yeah. Would you like to share it yourself? That's Ethan. He's 5.
I couldn't tell.
Maury Pasternak. I came with the building.
That's good, Maury.
I'm Shelley Frenson, I'm Lori's wife. I also came with the building, so. And I'm Cheryl Gilberstead. Maury says I've been here even longer than he has, so I did not come with the building. I'm on the board, I'm secretary, and happy to be here. Very happy that you're leading us. Thank you.
And I'm Phil Gumberstadt, and I was here just before they started construction.
Oh my gosh.
Was that the first or second temple?
That was funny. But I'm sure.
That's step one on the conversion process. So services, we'll call them services, but really this is Friday Night Lights. The main difference being our central prayers are omitted, and instead we'll be learning about Jonah and the Affordable Housing Task Force, excuse me. So instead we have some introductory prayers that'll kind of give a little bit of insight on what we are including. We'll hear from our guest speakers, then we'll close with some communal prayers as well. So you'll notice if you've been to services, there's a big chunk missing, and that is on purpose. But if you come back again, we'll do the full service together eventually. This next duo of songs, Hine Matov and Yediv Nefesh, are actually split between your red folder, page 6. And in your prayer book, page 145, you'll notice it's actually the very, very, very first thing that's sung on Shabbat. And traditionally, it's actually sung at home, but we gather here together. So Hine Matov, how good it is to gather. This version takes the English a little bit, so the words are how good it is, and you'll repeat it after me, how good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. We'll do it a couple times. And at the end, Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Those are the words. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Same thing. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Again. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Yediv Nefesh HaRachaman, page 145. Yediv Yerut Avdecha Kemoyal Yishtachavayai Yadalai El Mul Hadarecha Yarut Yarut Avdecha Kemoyal Yishtachavayai Yadalai El Mul Hadarecha Yedi Nefesh Rachaman Yedi Nefesh Rachaman Meshachadecha Eretz Onecha Meshachadecha Yadalai Eretz Onecha. We continue with the candle lighting, which can be found on page 14, and I invite Susan up for a reading.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the many generations of Jews who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehavlik ner להדליק נר של We join back together with the singing of Shalom Aleichem. For those who were present at Friday Night Live in February, the following teaching will sound a little familiar, but hopefully, even if it is not new, you will still be able to gain a new insight or connection. The prayer Shalom Aleichem that we are about to sing together is one that for many centuries, Jewish people sung at home, specifically over the Shabbat table before eating the Shabbat meal together. The text, which is written more like a hymn or a poem, is based on a verse from the Talmud. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says, two ministering angels, the Malachei Hasharet that we sing, accompany a person on Shabbat. And on Shabbat evening, from the synagogue to his home, there's one good angel and one evil angel. And when he reaches his home and finds a lamp burning and a table set and his bed made, the good angel says, "May it be your will that it shall be like this for another Shabbat." And the evil angel answers, "Against his will, Amen." And if the person's home is not prepared for Shabbat in that manner, the evil angel says, "May it be your will that it shall be so for another Shabbat." And the good angel answers, "Against his will, Amen." While some of us may have been unable to prepare our homes, our physical spaces in this way, I believe that we still have the opportunity to turn inward and prepare our hearts and our souls for Shabbat, so that the good angel may be the one to make an offering this week. Shalom Aleichem can be found in your red folder on page 11. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachhem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Welcome, Regeb, to the Bima for Shabbat meditation.
We are here together as one people, one community. We've joined to share in this treasured moment together as we transition from the hectic demands of life and daily routines. We are invited to leave the week behind, let go of what has been, and let go of what will be, and enter a place of stillness, a sacred space and time. As the sun begins to set, breathe in the glow of the sunset and pause. Breathe out the stresses of the week. Breathe in the calm of nightfall and pause. Breathe out and feel a sense of release. Breathe in the radiance of the moon and the stars and pause. Breathe out all thoughts of doing and become one with this present moment. Feel the warmth of relaxation wash over you. Breathe in the radiant light and pause. Feel your mind become open and unfettered. Breathe out and feel your soul become freed to soar to new heights. Breathe in the calm and pause. Feel yourself surrender. Breathe out everything and focus only on now. And feel your body, mind, and soul become whole and at peace. Now we are finally ready to graciously accept the present from our loving Creator, to embrace God's gift of rest and rejuvenation, to turn our complete attention towards Shabbat and savor all that Shabbat provides, and to become enveloped in holiness. As we breathe in and out once more, we pause and welcome in the Shabbat bride.
Our final prayer before welcoming our guest speakers is L'chad Odi, and as Regeb finished and mentioned the welcoming of the Shabbat bride at the end of the meditation, it's the perfect segue to this final prayer, L'chad Odi, which translates to, "Come, my beloved." It's most commonly attributed to the Kabbalists, which we've talked about at services before, the Kabbalists being the mystics. But more specifically, we identify the author of this prayer as Rabbi Shlomo Halevi Alkovitz. who was born in the year 1500 of the Common Era. Rabbi Elkabetz composed this prayer as he made sure all future generations knew. He composed it in an acrostic nature, which every single verse, the first letter of the verse, if you add them together, is his name. But the roots of the text within the prayer that he composed actually date back before Elkabetz himself and before the Kabbalist movement. They extend all the way back to the Talmud and the tractates of Shabbat and Bava Kama specifically. Other phrases in this prayer of Lecha Dodi are pulled directly from Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, and still others from the book of Isaiah and the Nevi'im, the prophets, and others from the Torah itself, specifically Parsha Shoftim in Deuteronomy, which, on a personal note, was my bat mitzvah Torah portion, and also where you find the often quoted Tzedek Tirdof, or justice, justice you shall pursue. So not only is a singular prayer a compilation of a vast array of texts and sources, but our whole prayer service itself, tefillah, is a collection. A mentor of mine, Rabbi Adam Stock-Spilker, once explained that the prayers in our services today, the Shema, the Baruch Hu, the Ve'ahavta, all of those prayers, Michamocha, are what he calls the greatest hits. It used to be that, before the Siddur was a printed prayer book, it was, well, this rabbi goes and talks about praising God or the miracle of crossing the Red Sea or how God is one in Shema. And it just became, well, that's a good one. Let's keep it. Ooh, I like how that one talks about, the different aspects of prayer and praise and things that are important to our Judaism. So obviously I could go on, and I'm sure there's a sermon on this topic in my future at some point, but instead I'll leave you with this. When we sing Lecha Dodi in just a moment, I invite you to see what parts of it connect with you the most today and in your life, and encourage you to pause, be present, and welcome in the Shabbat bride. On that note, of the many, many verses you'll see, we only sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we get to verse 9, if you're not familiar, we rise as a congregation. We face the doors at the rear in kind of a symbolic nature of welcoming the Shabbat bride to our midst. At the end of the verse, we return facing the ark, facing the front, as a way of feeling that the Shabbat bride has arrived into our congregation. So Lecha Dodi can be found on page 152 of your prayer book. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Shalom v'zachor v'dibur echad, Yishmiyanu el ha-menuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litfilah. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lekhu v'necha, ki mekor ha'veracha, ve'rosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshavata tefillah. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Verse 5. Hitoreri, ki ba'orem kumi uri, shir daveri, kivod Adonai alai yitni gila. Lecha Dodi likrakala pene Shabbat nekavela. Bohi v'shabbat Dodi Katala, Mele Shabbat, Mele Kavela. You may be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. It is my honor this evening to introduce our speakers. Susan Wolfram, many of you know, is a lifelong community advocate and organizer. She's a licensed clinical social worker, having received her MSSW from UW-Madison, worked for Mayo Health Systems as a psychotherapist for many years. After she received her PhD from the University of Minnesota, she taught in human development and family studies until she left Stout in 2016 as professor emeritus. Susan co-chairs Jonah's Affordable Housing Task Force, is a co-director of the Tenant Landlord Resource Center, and sits on the City of Eau Claire's Planning Commission. Susan completed her mediation training through UW-Madison's continuing studies and looks forward to providing mediation services and training volunteers for early intervention to prevent evictions in the best interests of landlords, tenants, and our community. Paul Savitas is a longtime resident of the Chippewa Valley, a graduate of Memorial High School, Carroll College, and UW-Eau Claire. He and his wife have been living in rural Eau Claire County since 1977. And he taught middle school and high school English at Mondovi Schools for 27 years, has worked as a community organizer in Eau Claire for the past 12 years, primarily as a volunteer organizer with Jonah, joining our neighbors, advancing hope. He has served on the Jonah Affordable Housing Task Force core team as secretary since its inception in 2017, and is co-director of the Tenant Landlord Resource Center. He also, that's not enough, also serves on the Western Dairyland EOC Board of Directors, is a member of the Dairyland Housing Coalition, and has volunteered with many other local organizations and nonprofits over the past 40 years. He believes in working together to create a more just, healthy, and sustainable community for us all, trusting in the triumph of love and hope over hate and fear. Please welcome Susan and Paul, and I believe Paul is starting us off this evening.
Thanks, man. Well, I have no idea that you're going to share that, Matt, but I guess you know a little bit more about me now. It's a delight to be here today with you. I was actually here about 10 years ago to speak to the congregation about Jonah back in the days when I was president of Jonah. I see some familiar faces here in the congregation, and it's a delight to be invited to be here today. So my task today is to tell you a little bit about the Affordable Housing Task Force. I'll tell you how we got started and a little bit about the kind of work that we've been doing. And we'll have opportunity for questions later on. So if you have any, save them up. So as Matt mentioned, the Affordable Housing Task Force was actually formed in 2018, but its origins are in 2017. I don't know if you remember, but the public library does community reads periodically. In 2017, the community read was the book Evicted by Matthew Desmond. A lot of folks in the community read that book, including many members of the church at which I worship, First Congregational United Church of Christ. Hello, Kurt. Good to see you. Our core team, the Jonah core team at our First Congregational Church, of which I chair, decided after reading that book and talking to members of the congregation that we wanted to hold a forum in the church about affordable housing in Eau Claire. And so we invited members of the church and members of the community to join us, and about 30, 35 people showed up. Had a great forum, a lot of questions came up, and it led to a second and a third forum because so many people wanted to know more about the issue. So each time we had another forum, a larger crowd came until finally at our last forum there were nearly 100 people there. We had invited folks from the Eau Claire County Health Department, the Eau Claire Housing Authority, Wisconsin Balance of State Continuum of Care, Western Dairyland, Chippewa Valley Free Clinic, and others to talk about the issue of housing in our community. After that third forum, we were pretty sure that Eau Claire had an affordable housing crisis going on. And we needed to do something about it. We decided at that meeting to form the Affordable Housing Task Force. And that was shortly after that when Susan and I became friends and acquainted, and Judy Mosley, who's also a co-chair of our Affordable Housing Task Force. So the three of us together hatched a plot to have the Affordable Housing Task Force. At our first meeting, 16 people showed up. And although we probably have, I would say, 10 active members now, our membership has actually grown beyond that 16. We have quite a large mailing list, a lot of folks who are interested in work. We meet monthly on the first Thursday of every month. Lately, we've been meeting by Zoom, but now we'll be meeting at First Congregational Church. So if you're ever interested in attending an Affordable Housing Task Force meeting, please let Susan or me know, and we'll send you more information about it. 5:30 to 7 o'clock. We're very prompt. We start on time and we end on time. So we wrote a mission statement for the Affordable Housing Task Force, and I want to read that to you because I think it will give you an idea of where we started. Our mission is to facilitate culture change in Eau Claire City and County so that all stakeholders are informed about the lack of safe, good quality, affordable housing and are motivated to take actions to address it through public and private initiatives. That term culture change, I think, is key to what we're all about. We're working to change the culture in this community so people understand the problem and want to do something about it. And I believe that that's happening. I'm sure that you've heard more and more about the work that the community is doing around that issue. So we work in several areas, and I'll just highlight a few of them. First of all, probably foremost, we advocate for the development of more affordable housing, especially for those that are earning less than 60% of the area median income, and those that have high barriers to finding housing, such as those who are returning from incarceration, or those with an eviction history, or those who suffer from mental illness or addiction issues. To do that, we have been working with developers to try to get them to build more affordable housing units, not only with developers, but of course with the city and the state. I want to just share two success stories that we've had working with developers locally. One was the development of the Eddy on First Avenue next to the Quick Trip. It's in the Cannery District, just west across the river. That was developed by the Capital W Group. Tyler Warner is from Eau Claire. His family is from Eau Claire, and they provided 30 units for folks below the median income. I think some at 50% and some at 30%. That's been very successful. Got full right away, of course. The next one is a project that's ongoing, or it's in development now. It's called the Prairie Heights Development. It's right near the city of Altoona River Prairie Development, just off of Birch Street. And that was Paul Gerard, who's a developer from La Crosse, and a local developer named Jason Rippentag. And they will have 60 units of affordable housing. And they will also provide services for folks through WestCap, which is a economic opportunity council from the western part of the state. And they'll be in the facility to provide services for those folks there. They're also reserving 10 units for folks who are currently homeless. Both Paul and Tyler were able to finance their developments in part through Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority. They're called low-income tax credits. And that's very difficult to get. It's very competitive. Typically, larger urban centers receive those tax credits, but through our work and Paul Gerard's work especially, they were able to get those low-income tax credits to be able to afford to build those units. It's a challenge for developers to build units that are affordable for folks. It's very expensive to build right now. And so we're hoping to encourage the city and the state to continue to provide incentives for developers so that they can afford these units. We know that it's expensive, but we also know that people who are housed save the community money. So that when we ask the community to invest in affordable housing, it's an investment that pays off. It pays off big time, not only economically, but also in lives that are saved and people that are returned to community. Some early successes that we've had in organizing in the community, and in particular working with the city and county staff and elected officials, was the formation of the Housing Opportunities Commission. You might have heard of that. They meet regularly. That was something that Susan and Judy kind of hatched and worked with city council members to organize, and has now been in operation for 3 years. 3 years. And also they have developed an affordable housing fund, which they're using to help developers build affordable housing. Another big success was our work with the Maples Trailer Park community. I don't know if you were familiar with that. That was probably 3-4 years ago now. That was a really rough trailer park on Western Avenue on the north end of town. These were homes that were long past usable state. Folks living in really substandard third world conditions in our own community. And they were in need of advocacy and in need of help to advocate for themselves. And so we worked with them to speak to the city and the county authorities, police department. We held meetings at the Brickside Brewery, Brickside Pub. Can't remember what it's called. Brick House, thank you, the Brick House. I think there were 3 meetings. We brought in Eau Claire Health, City and County Health Department, and we called attention to the substandard conditions that they were living in. And in particular, the way they were being taken advantage of by the owners of the property. Ultimately, the property got bought, but because of our advocacy, those folks who were there were given $3,000 to move on to a new place. And Susan in particular worked with Department of Housing, DHS.
Human Services.
Human Services, thank you very much. The Department of Human Services to provide housing navigation for folks who are looking for new places. And so ultimately, everybody got relocated. The trailers were torn down. It's now being used as part of, what's that called? An industrial equipment operation anyway. And we still are in contact with a lot of those folks that live there. And it's good to know that they're living in better places. The third thing I want to mention is a project called Solace Circle in Altoona. That was an assisted living facility that had been abandoned and was not being used for a couple of years. And in talking with the city of Altoona and a developer by the name of Cody Flipsack, you might have heard of CNN Builders, we talked about turning that into affordable apartments. And so the city of Altoona invested in the property. The developer contributed a lot of his own sweat equity in remodeling them. And now there are 24 highly affordable small apartments in this building. These are 24 families, individuals that couldn't otherwise have afforded housing. They're not receiving vouchers. The rents are so low that they can afford to live there on the limited incomes that they have. So the rents are like $450 to $550 a month, which includes all the utilities. So it's really quite an excellent project. And one of the big things that we did to get that project underway was to meet with the neighbors in that community. We canvassed, I would say, 200 neighbors in that surrounding area to tell them about the project, let them know what we were working on so there wouldn't be a surprise to them, letting them know that we wanted to hear their concerns and their questions. And then ultimately we held an open house before the remodeling began and invited the neighbors to come in and express their concerns, and got a great deal of support from that neighborhood. And I think that was one of the reasons that's been very successful. The neighbors accepted it. The city of Altoona appreciated the work that we did to help that project become a reality. We like to think of that as a model for other kinds of projects that we could do in this community and others around the state. It was not highly expensive, and it provides really good, safe, good quality housing for folks that can't otherwise afford it. The last thing I'm going to mention is the work that we have done to create the Community Haven House. I hope you're familiar with this day center that we have right now for folks who are experiencing homelessness, to be during the day that's safe and warm in the winter, cool in the summer. It's not for 8 hours a day, unfortunately, because we don't have enough income to provide staffing for that full time, but it's much more than they had before. And this was accomplished through quite a long process of building partnerships in the community with city and county officials, with Catholic Charities, trying to think of the other nonprofits that were involved in it. I should have all written them down. Oh, the community table, I did write them down. Chippewa Valley Street Ministry.
What a good idea you had.
I knew I wouldn't be able to remember. So this got started about, I think we've been in operation for 2 years now. And the city and county really stepped up and provided funding for us to pay for the staff that are there. ARPA funding. We got, let's see, Susan, you're gonna fill in some of the details.
$450,000 from the city.
Yeah, and another $100,000 from the county
Yeah.
to pay for that. And again, that was all because of the relationships that we built. Susan chaired that group, the Community Haven House Advisory Committee. And it was one of those things that people talked about for years, but nobody ever worked hard enough to make it happen. They didn't do the kind of organizing work that Jonah does, that we do, to get people to the table, those who have the problem, those who are stakeholders in the problem, to talk about what it would take to create this. And it's really quite amazing. The next project that we're in the middle of right now is for a permanent day center, a day resource center. And we're getting there.
That's my room.
We've been working on this for 3 years. We've visited other resource centers around the state and in Minnesota to see how they're operating. Again, we've worked with our partners. We've got, the city has contributed $500,000 toward the construction of a building. Hope Gospel Mission has become a partner. Western Dairyland has become a partner. And I think that this will be a reality. It's going to be expensive and it's going to take some time. But again, the community organizing that we have done to bring partners together, to have folks who are suffering in our community, who are experiencing homelessness, to give them the opportunity to tell their stories so that people understand the kind of suffering that they're experiencing, and to educate the community about the need for these resources. So we're very excited about that. We feel like it's going to make a huge impact for those folks. It'll provide resources there at the facility so that people are able to get those resources, start working to find housing, find jobs, and get other things that will help them to get on with their lives. So our work is about building relationships. We work with the affected community especially, and of course we work with all the other stakeholders that are involved. But first and foremost, we're about building relationships. So thank you. I'll pass it on to Susan.
Good evening again, and thank you so much again for inviting us. I've been absent from Temple for a couple of years, and I do have to say that it feels very, very inspirational to actually be back. I prepared my remarks so that we stay within our time frame, and then hopefully we'll have time for questions and.
We're at the ONET too? Oh, are you?
Yes, absolutely. Matthew Desmond, the author of Evicted, is well known for stating a stark truth, that without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. Social determinants of health are the conditions in which an individual is born, lives, learns, plays, works, and ages that ultimately impact overall health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes. These conditions are shaped by key social factors, and the fundamental key social factor is having a stable home. Housing is one of the best researched social determinants of health, and selected housing interventions for housing insecure people have been found to improve health outcomes and decrease healthcare costs. I'd like to give you just a bit of context first, and Paul began that context. We live in an incredibly beautiful city with many amenities that are accessible to all of us. However, Eau Claire, like many cities, both large and small, finds itself in a housing crisis. There are many intersecting factors. We have a very low vacancy rate in this city, which does not incentivize landlords to take risks on folks with barriers, including folks with low income, anyone with a recorded legal eviction, and those with a felony on their record. We are building multi-family rentals, about 900 units within the last 3 years, for those that are in the 80 to 120% of the area or county median income, and that median income hovers around $65,000 a year. So that means if you're within 80 to 120%, these are household incomes of approximately $52,000 to $78,000 per year. However, in Eau Claire, we have approximately 40% of our residents that are earning $30,000 or less per year, and they are rent burdened, spending more than 30% of their income on rent and utilities, and many are spending 50% or more. The median rent reported for 2019 for an apartment was $823 in Eau Claire County, but as is true elsewhere in the country, rents have skyrocketed during and after the pandemic. So that now $823 would be enough only for a studio apartment, and that is if you could find one. Even that would require a salary of $35,000 per year. So currently, those households that are at approximately 50% of our median income could only afford a studio apartment. A particular telling statistic relates to evictions. In 2021, Eau Claire County had 137 filings for evictions, and 12.41% of the filings resulted in a judgment. Statewide, that number was 9.8%, which is significantly lower. Early intervention in landlord-renter disputes through mediation should be able to decrease both the number of filings and the number of judgments. It's important to note that if you are living in subsidized housing and you get evicted, you can no longer ever live in subsidized housing. The Wisconsin tax credit programs that Paul referred to, WIDA for developers, may only yield one project per year, if any. Some years we have none. And these projects, as Paul described, will add maybe 40 units for folks earning $30,000 per year or less. We have long waiting lists for subsidized housing in Eau Claire. We have over 400 families on our city waiting list, many with vouchers who cannot find a landlord to rent to them. A voucher is rendered completely mute if you don't have any landlords that are willing to rent to you. And again, that has to do with the low vacancy rate. The Eau Claire School District reported that 830 children were identified as being homeless sometime during the school year. Many of these children are living in hotels. I'm sure you've heard about the Regency Hotel issue that the city recently filed a lawsuit and are trying to shut it down, or they're living with family and friends. According to the Eau Claire Area School District Homeless Coordinator, Danny, these families may have the financial ability to obtain housing, but they lack the time or the knowledge to find an apartment or house. It's really difficult to concentrate on anything other than your sheer survival. In this climate, it's imperative that we assist folks to access housing and then sustain the housing they have once they find it. The need for a tenant landlord resource center has been evident for many years, but was greatly exacerbated by the pandemic. Our task force was receiving an influx of messages asking for consultation and assistance regarding tenant rights as the threat of eviction loomed and folks were losing or leaving their jobs. We were made aware of the fact that there were no eviction prevention or mediation services north of Madison before a person was involved in the eviction legal process. One eviction can change the trajectory of an individual or a family's life, and multiple evictions in a community are destabilizing. Early intervention between tenants and landlords before the word eviction is even spoken benefits everyone. A fellow housing advocate, a social worker that we work with on the ground, who supports folks struggling with finding and then sustaining housing, shared with us, I quote, "As a social worker, I routinely hear the stories of failed housing applications, evictions, hopes and then disappointments. It's nearly impossible for some people to obtain housing independently using traditional methods. The Tenant Landlord Resource Center is crucial for the success of both the tenant and the landlord. Trying to find housing to rent and or navigate the various programs that help is often too difficult for the people who need help the most. There are no standard applications or procedures, and even for the knowledgeable, filling out the forms correctly can be challenging. I mean, I have a PhD, and I took a look at that city housing application, and I think I called Paul and 3 other people, and I said, help me, okay? Once housed, many tenants have trouble understanding the conditions of their lease. And that's a really important factor because people are so desperate to get an apartment that they will just sign anything. They'll sign it with ever reading their lease. So then they don't know what to do when they encounter problems with their apartment or landlord. Our purpose is to intervene early when a problem emerges to assist tenants and landlords in developing a plan for the tenant to sustain their housing in the best interest of everyone. So I just want to review a little bit what we do and then I'll close. We serve as a front door to improve awareness of resources and direct people to available services. The center serves as a resource for both tenants and landlords to prevent problems and to mediate disputes as necessary. So we call the Tenant Landlord Resource Center, which is very long, we call it the TLRC. So the TLRC currently is housed in Grace Lutheran Church near other social assistance service providers. However, our coordinator, Chelsea Hebert, who could not be here this evening, meets people where they are. So she has a mobile office, which is very, very useful. She'll meet folks at the library, at Sojourner's House, Community Haven House, or at a coffee shop. We provide a comprehensive website, landlord and renter education, individual counseling, assistance programs that work on providing information, skills, and resources to existing renters, as well as those seeking housing, to help them know their rights and responsibilities and learn how to be a responsible tenant. We also provide mediation, housing navigation, legal consultation, and community education. I think one thing that's very dear to me, I worked in the jail for over 10 years with a trauma-informed program called Stop and Think. And then I helped mentor folks coming out of jail and prison to re-enter our community. And one thing that's very important to me is that our center would be assisting formerly incarcerated folks and those with a justice-involved record. I don't like to say criminal record because that's too stigmatizing, so I say having a justice-involved record. And then you have to get the trust of landlords that if you vet a person that has a record, that person has to be absolutely committed to their recovery, to their job. And we have a couple of landlords that trust us. So within the last couple of months, it doesn't sound like a lot, but we've been able to house 2 individuals and 1 couple when they've been looking for housing for a very, very, very long time. And I never think about it as just one individual. I think about it as really changing generations. You're really changing an entire generation. So our first community event, and you have that flyer for tenants, is April 18th. It's called What Did I Just Sign? Understanding Your Lease. And we're giving Paul credit for that title, by the way. It's in the L.E. Phillips Library River Room on April 18th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. If you know any landlords who have tenants that could benefit from this, I ask you to please share it with them. If you know any tenants that could benefit from this, I ask you to share it with them. So in closing, I want to acknowledge that the TLRC is supported by the Eau Claire Community Foundation, the Pablo Foundation, and ARPA funding from Eau Claire County. We're very grateful to them. Thanks again for inviting us, and then we'll have time for questions, maybe downstairs. Is that what we're planning? Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
I think it's safe to say that there's so many elements to the issues that you guys are working on that really fit into the social justice framework that's very important to us as Jews and as a congregation, and it's one of the reasons that we continue to partner with Jonah and have representatives on their different task force, and we thank you for the work that you're doing for our community at large. I think it's safe to call this a tradition now, we've done it for 3 months, that at the end of having a speaker, I offer a reflection song, sometimes related to what we heard, sometimes not, but just a moment to pause, to take in everything that we heard and to come up with those questions for our own at our gathering afterwards. For me, I was thinking about Tikkun Olam, repairing our world. I was thinking about a passage from Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our sages, that it is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. It may seem insurmountable, but that's not a reason not to do anything. So in that spirit, I will continue with a song that's really just for your listening and for your time to reflect on what we heard, and then we'll move forward with our communal prayers and the closing of our time together. That text comes to us from Psalms 19. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. We also now turn to God for a blessing of healing. If you or someone dear to you is in need of healing, I invite you to stand now, and when I pause in the Hebrew prayer, to say their names aloud together. Mishaberach Avotenu Bimotenu Hu Yivarech V'Yirapeh Et HaCholim Beinenu. Yishlach Lahem Mehira Refuah Shlema Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf. O God, who blessed our ancestors, bring the blessing of complete healing to all who suffer, healing of body, mind, soul, and spirit. Endow those who tend to them with gentle hands and wise hearts. Strengthen those who love them with courage and patience. Comfort those at the end of their days with a sense of wholeness, and bless us all with peace. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our source of healing. Our prayer for healing can be found in the reverse of the narrow card that was handed out. It's a text that comes from the Torah, from Numbers. Elna Rafana La, Rafana Lanu is the Hebrew. And then it's a call and response, an echo you'll see. So you just repeat after me. Dear God of our ancestors,
Dear God of our ancestors,
help us renew our faith.
help us renew our faith.
Grant us a perfect healing.
Grant us a perfect healing.
Bring peace to all our days.
Bring peace to all our days.
And Arefana, Lanu. And Arefana, Lanu. Restore our strength of body.
Restore our strength of body.
Help clarify our minds.
Help clarify our minds.
Refresh our tired spirits.
Refresh our tired spirits.
Rejuvenate our light.
Rejuvenate our life.
And Arefana,
for all these blessings.
Throughout our days and nights,
Throughout our days and nights,
we celebrate the journey.
we celebrate the journey.
This precious gift of life.
This precious gift of life.
El Narifana, Narifana, Lanu. El Narifana, Narifana, Lanu. And I realize if you're not familiar with this text, El Narifana La in Numbers, it's actually Moses calling out to God to heal Miriam, his sister, which feels especially present with our upcoming holiday of Passover. I counted heads and noticed that we don't actually have a minion tonight to say Kaddish formally. I will still offer a reading, and if anyone is here to say Kaddish, I have a blessing that you can see me afterwards, and we can do individually in place of that. So I'll offer a poem. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and to old men who wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for the person walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You could love me best by letting hands touch hands, letting bodies touch bodies, and letting go of people who need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, those whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race, religion, and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. If you are in a period of mourning or remembering someone on their yard site this Shabbat, or holding close the life of someone who has gone before you, you're welcome to share the names aloud after I read our community names so that we may offer our comfort as a community. This month, our congregation remembers the yard sites of Jenny Abramson, Fanny Marcus, May Margulies, Rosalind Milovitz, Albert I. Drucker, Eva Moses, Fanny Fine Lotwin, Nick Cooks, and Robert R. Levine. Are there any other names to share?
Jason Saavedra.
We draw all those named and unnamed into our hearts with our own and remember them together. We turn now to announcements. Tomorrow morning, our congregation has Torah study. Please join us at 10:30. Later this month is the Passover Seder. You received an email with an RSVP. Please do that. And afterwards, we have our own night to meet with Susan, to meet with Paul, to meet with each other, to share in the joy of Shabbat. And is there anything I forgot? Anything else anyone needs to add? Again, if you'd like to do a prayer in place of Kaddish individually, since we don't have a minion, please see me afterwards. I have that for you. And now we'll turn to page 86 for a prayer for peace before our closing song.
Somebody else.
Yeah, I think so. Would anyone else, I was asking Danielle, if anyone else would like to lead it in place, please come on up. I will have you read for us.
Page 86.
86, yeah. And I can do the Hebrew at the bottom.
Can it be in English?
Yep, please.
Prayer for which one?
Peace.
Peace.
Yeah.
Thank you. Come up or say it?
You can do it from your seat. I know you have the.
We pause to offer our fervent wishes that today, that each day, that the world becomes a better place. We pray for the well-being of our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel and for Jews throughout the world and of all the members of our human family. We pray for an end to intergroup hatred. May everyone realize that God's purposes are not served by strife, but by reconciliation. We pray that we retain a prophetic view of the world, that ultimately good will prevail over evil, that one day the peace we desire so earnestly will indeed come to pass. We pray, may we all live in peace. May we all see an end to war. May we all live in faith. May we all see an end to fear. We pray for the day when all peoples achieve a common understanding of your will and unite to strive for the peace and justice that you desire. May the creator of peace and harmony in the universe create peace in our world as well. Peace for us, peace for all of Israel, peace for all people, and peace for all peoples. Amen.
Aseh shalom b'mormav, huya aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimuru. Amen. We join together for our closing song, which can be found in your red folder on page 9, a prayer for peace. Od yavo shalom aleinu, salam shalom. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu. Page 9, did I say that? Page 9. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam shalom, salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam shalom. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al kulam. Salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam shalom. Salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Okay.